Today on Mysterious Morsels, we're talking about Dracula. I don't think you can get away with anything fun, spooky, mysterious, Halloween, or this time of year without talking about Dracula. He's obviously iconic. The mainstay of all things spooky. You can get any monster or any special character or prosthetic or alien or werewolf or whatever you want to talk about, but Dracula's sort of the beginning of it all. From back in the day with early black and white movies starring Bela Lugosi and Nosferatu and some things that people didn't even know at the time that were really just sharp claws and sharp teeth, and they would put in the fake eyebrows and stuff and having a real basic scare. There was always this mysterious blood-sucking person that would come in and have this weird elegance to him in a count sort of way. He was regal. He was from some part of the world that was little known. It was this whole mystery behind it. He could possibly transform into a mist or a bat or another entity, or he could disappear, or he could read your mind. He wasn't visible in any kind of mirror, and then eventually we start seeing like Bride of Dracula and all these like iterations of Dracula. So, could he turn people or just kill them? Was he affiliated with any kind of historical background? You start seeing things about like Vlad the Impaler, and there was like a historical part to it where people started to believe that there was actually a blood drinking person or entity or a real live blood drinker that would go through. And of course then you had people that were starting to behave like vampires even though they weren't per se really vampires. So as this started to become a thing and get traction, you get through the years a different flavor for vampires. Some were silly, some were funny, some were very serious. In the 70s, you had the very very early 80s, very late 70s, you had kind of like the creature double feature thing going on after we went through the black and white stuff, and you started to see movies like Love at First Bite with George Hamilton that were Susan St. James, that were supposed to be a play on the real story with Renfield, and they're going after him, and George Hamilton's like all done up as the Count, and it's funny and quirky, and he's of course in Manhattan, which is ridiculous, and they show you all the challenges that would come with that. And then you kind of graduate to Once Bitten with Jim Carrey, which is equally ridiculous but funny, and you start to see more of a Lauren Hutton kind of a I have to stay alive with young guys kind of a thing. So it was a reverse vampire that's a female, so it's kind of neat. And then you start to see things more on the back to spooky side, like Fright Night and Lost Boys. And Lost Boys, of course, became iconic because of the cast, but it was a pretty good take on actual vampire story that was fun, followable, believable in terms of obviously buying into the lore, but it holds up in time. I mean, it's got some 80s references and things in there at the close, but Jason Patric, Corey Haim, Corey Feldman did a really great job, and it's got a great soundtrack. It still holds up despite it being part of the 80s lore, but they actually went on to make a sequel. Obviously didn't do as well. Then you start to see in the 90s, the turn to serious and historical happens, and you see Bram Stoker. And Bram Stoker's Dracula was the primer to all things Dracula. So now we've got this complete Vlad the Impaler backstory, and it's kind of sad because he loses his wife, and you see how he's tortured, and he goes through the years. And now we've even, the most recent one I didn't see was The Last Voyage of the Demeter. I have it saved on my DVR to watch, but I haven't done that yet. But that's even talking about, getting from Carfax Abbey, in the dirt from the place in his homeland so he can regenerate and shapeshift and things like that. And Bram Stoker really, say what you want. I think Keanu Reeves did a fantastic job, as did Winona Ryder in the movie, and of course Sir Anthony Hopkins. But fantastic movie. Great book. They have since redone sequels with that. This gives way to John Carpenter's Vampires. Slightly cheesy, a little less serious, but how they went from James Woods to Bon Jovi, I have no idea. But they did have a movie and then a subsequent sequel. You could even do things like 30 Days a Night, with Josh Hartnett. You start to see that. And then, of course, Blade shows up, which, again, say what you want, it's an iconic trilogy, and it's definitely cult following no matter what. It did fantastic in the first two. I like Trinity. I like them all. But, it was definitely a different kind of tweak on things. Garlic's still an issue, but not so much the religious side of it. Silver becomes a big thing, which you kind of always saw with werewolves. So that was sort of a different spin. And then you've got all these things sort of pouring out. You've got Anne Rice at the time doing Interview with a Vampire, which has now become a series. You start to see Vampire Diaries. Books are written like crazy. People are doing knockoffs. True Blood comes to HBO and has a whole series. I mean, come on, Vampire Cocaine with the little red substance that they had on the table. That was creative and crazy at the same time. Like, who knew that was going to come about? Just the different possibilities that people didn't think of, changing the lore or making it modern so that they could live among you and you wouldn't really know it. They could be somebody that you were talking to and you weren't aware. And then that sort of branches even farther when you get into the nice happy vampires like Twilight. Again, say what you want, it really swept everybody, and it gave a nice approach to vampires. It gave the whole sparkly vibe. It was like, oh, we're vegetarians, we're not going to hurt you. Obviously, there were still some bad ones out there, but for the most part, here was this lovable family that is incredibly beautiful. They looked like they were engineered by, the gods on Mount Olympus themselves, and they want to do the right thing. They want to be helpful. They're positive. They're wealthy. They're every good thing that you could be. By the way, they're not monsters because they're vegetarians and eat only animals. So there's a whole different spin on that. And you could even bleed that into the lore with the whole idea of the werewolves, and of course it becomes a love triangle, but that even bleeds into stories like Underworld. But I'm going to save that for later when we start talking about things like lichens and werewolves, because I think that's better set there, although you definitely have a foray from vampires into the werewolf genre. But it's just amazing that there's so many options, and these are just some of the major ones that I grew up with and like and have either read or watched or both, and always look forward to more. But it's a timeless story. It's never going to get old. And you could say it's one guy, it's one count, it's one person, it's one set of archetypal things. But, it's really a huge just backbone to all things creative in that spooky Halloween genre. I don't think you'd have the costumes and the scare tactics and the idea behind that spooky entity without Dracula. I mean, even to go as far as saying like Michael Jackson's Thriller, which clearly is more of a zombie thing and a werewolf thing, you don't have the thought process of that shapeshifter, that changing entity that's always lurking in the darkness, that kind of can read your thoughts and know everything about you, but you have no control. It's almost unfair. They disappear, they turn into mist. It's hard to fight, and all you're really battled with is modern day, I'd say, silver and stakes, things like that. They kind of get away from the coffins and some of the extra pieces that you thought religion can play into it or not, depending on the genre and who's writing. But it's still interesting, captivating, and whether you're into spooky stuff or not, there's the mild side of this, and then there's the more aggressive side of it, and there's usually it appeals to almost everyone. I mean, it's almost like the color blue. You just don't see a bad thing there. People just want to like everybody likes a shade of blue, so they say. So everybody likes some sort of vampire. It's almost impossible to not like at least some sort of vampire. I would challenge anybody not to. Which makes me ask you, let me know in the comments what is your favorite vampire movie or your favorite vampire scenario, or maybe it's something I didn't mention and I'm unaware of other stuff out there. I'm always interested, so please do let me know that, because like I said, we're going to go forward with this series of different things and Halloween spooky to keep our mysterious morsels up for the season, because this is our time of year. Don't forget to scare that like button and subscribe while you check out other content that we have posted down there for you. And there's a couple different books that you might want to see, and I would love for you to check out a couple of things that I wrote that were there that are on that spooky line too. So if you like anything along that psychological realm or dreams and some different superstitions, then you definitely want to check out Seven Dreams and Ominous Tales. All right, well, I will catch you the next time with our new installment of the next spooky thing for the season. Thanks for listening.